Hello listeners, today we will be discussing about classification of metamorphic rocks. Here is the outline of the talk. We will have an introduction section. This will be followed by the classification of metamorphic rocks based on parent rock, based on structure and texture, based on mineralogical composition, types of metamorphism, grade of metamorphism, and we will conclude by a summary. As we all know that metamorphic rocks are those rocks which have resulted from the formation of or change of igneous or metamorphic or sedimentary rocks due to rise in pressure or temperature, catalyzed by chemically active fluids. So, basically metamorphic rock are formed by a chemical transformation of already pre-existing igneous, metamorphic or sedimentary rock. And based on these, metamorphic rocks can be classified based on parent rock, texture, structure, mineralogical composition, metamorphic processes, grade and phases. Parent rock, as in what is the parent rock, whether it is an igneous rock or a sedimentary rock or a already pre-existing low grade metamorphic rock. Texture, what kind of texture it is showing, whether it is showing some kind of a foliation or a lineation. Different textures, whether we have this change in the size of the ground mass and the porphyroblast. Mineralogical composition is apparently is a result of the parent rock. If we have a quartzite, we have a different mineralogical composition which is resulting by the metamorphism of a sandstone. Likewise, if we have a granulite, we know that the parent composition must have been a mafic rock which will be rich in clinopyroxenes, plagioclases, olivine, etc. The different metamorphic processes which takes place also can affect the classification of the rock. If we have a cataclastic metamorphism, we have cataclastic rocks. If we have regional metamorphism, we will have a regional metamorphic rock. Then the grade, that is at what pressure and temperature the rock has formed and what all minerals constitute the equilibrium assemblage for the metamorphic rock will constitute the phases at which the metamorphism has taken place, and that can also be used as a criteria to classify metamorphic rocks. Below you can see a diagram where we are showing a shale which is a rock which has no metamorphism, it is a sedimentary rock. This will be followed by low grade metamorphism which will convert the shale into slate. On further increase of pressure and temperature, we will convert the slate to phyllite. Phyllite will then get transformed to schist, and later on with further increase in pressure and temperature, we will have a high grade metamorphism which will result in formation of a gneiss. As previously discussed, first let us take up the parent rock as a basis for classification of metamorphic rocks. As I mentioned already that we can have diverse origin of parent rock for a metamorphic rock. It can be either igneous, sedimentary or metamorphic. Igneous rock, for instance, I can have a granite or a basalt. Sedimentary rock, I can have a mudstone or a sandstone, or metamorphic rock, I can have a low grade phyllite which will further transform to a high grade schist or a gneiss. Below is an example which is being shown. There is calcareous limestone which is a sedimentary rock which upon metamorphism gets converted to marble. So, this is one way of classifying igneous rock. We can tell about the parent rock and its counterpart on the metamorphic rock. So, if we have a sedimentary origin, we call those metamorphic rocks either as parametamorphic or metasedimentary rocks. For instance, conversion of shale to slate, sandstone to quartzite, limestone to marble, these are all conversions resulting from sedimentary rocks. Shale, sandstone, limestone, these are sedimentary rocks, and the metamorphic rocks resulting out of them are slate, quartzite and marble. Phyllite is a special variety of metamorphic rocks derived from fine grain clay bearing sedimentary protolith. Then we have semites, These are also a special variety of sedimentary rock derived metamorphic rocks which are from arenaceous quartz dominated sedimentary protolith. We can have metamorphic rocks originating from igneous rocks. Those kind of metamorphic rocks can be addressed as either meta-igneous rocks or orthometamorphic rocks. Common examples which we tend to see in nature are the conversion of dolerite to amphibolite. Dolerite is a plutonic igneous rock which is consisting of clinopyroxene and plagioclases mostly, which will upon metamorphism will convert to an amphibolite. Then we have granite, which is usually consisting of potash feldspar, plagioclase feldspar and quartz, and this will on metamorphism will be converted to granite gneiss. Then we have metamorphic rocks can also originate from a pre-existing metamorphic rock. For instance, if I have a low grade metamorphic rock, upon higher grade of metamorphism, it will be converted to a high grade metamorphic rock. For instance, I have a slate which on high grade of metamorphism will convert to a schist or a gneiss. Here are some common examples showing you the metamorphic equivalent from different sedimentary and igneous rocks. On the left hand side are the sedimentary rocks listed, on the right hand side we have the metamorphic rock equivalents being listed. If we have a argillaceous cell, it will get converted to slate. If I have a dolerite or a diabase, it will get converted to amphibolite. Then if I have a granite, it will get transformed to a granite gneiss. Based on structure and textures, metamorphic rocks can be broadly categorized into two varieties by the presence or absence of foliations, foliated and non-foliated. The term foliation usually refers to the structure which is caused by the parallel alignment of mineral grains. Metamorphic rocks in which there is no visible orientation of mineral crystals are called as non-foliated, are exhibiting non-foliated textures and they are non-foliated metamorphic rocks. Common example of foliated metamorphic rock is a schist, and likewise eclogite is a non-foliated metamorphic rock. Basis of classification in this category is the appearance of the rock in hand specimen or at outcrop scale. Rocks may be displaying slaty cleavage, then we call that as a slate. If we have schistosity or gneiss being developed in the rock, then we will call that rock either as a schist or as a gneiss. Therefore, the rock names usually used will be slate, schist and gneiss, which we commonly come across in the metamorphic literature. Rocks with sheet-like tabular mineral grains that split into thin and even slabs are said to display slaty cleavage or foliation. Common examples of such minerals are usually the phyllosilicate group of minerals. Phyllosilicate group of minerals include mica group, chloride group, clay minerals and so on. The rocks that contain mineral grains that are large enough to be recognized in hand specimens are well foliated and can be cleaved into thin flakes are called as schistose rocks. The large mineral grains usually seen in a schistose rock is what we call as a porphyroblast. Then we have gneissic rocks. These are generally very coarse grain and they comprise of alternating light and dark color bands of minerals arranged parallel to each other. The alternating light and dark colored bands usually consist of the light colored bands are consisting of quartz and feldspars, and the dark colored bands may be consisting of mafic minerals like amphiboles, and other mafic minerals also can be present. Here are some common examples of foliated metamorphic rocks. We have on the right hand side a hand specimen of a slate, a compact very fine grained metamorphic rock with very well developed cleavage. These are called slates because of the presence of slaty cleavage. Slates look very much like their parental cells, but are more coherent. It is a rock with a cystosity in which very fine grained phyllosilicates like sericite, fangite and or chloride impart a silky sheen to the foliation surface. Phyllites can have both foliation and lineation. Granulation cleavage is a very commonly observed structure in phyllites. You can see on the right hand side a phyllite which is showing a very silky luster. This is because of the presence of mica minerals in it, and you can see on the border that there is a fine foliation surface along which the rock can cleave. Then we have schist. Schist is a metamorphic rock exhibiting cystosity. Cystosity is the textural feature which is arising out of parallel alignment of platy grains in the rock. In this rock, foliated minerals are coarse enough to be easily seen in hand specimen. Here you can see a schist. This is a garnet bearing mica schist. Here are the brown colored garnets. These are the porphyroblasts, and the foliation planes are being defined by the parallel alignment of platy minerals, in this case micas. It can be both muscovite and biotite, and both of them belong to phyllosilicate group of minerals. Some amount of chlorite also can be present, or even fangite can be present in these. Then we have the gneisses. This is a metamorphic rock displaying gneiss texture. Basically, this is a layered rock in which we can see clear banding of alternating felsic and darker mineral layers. Gneissic layers or concentrations need not laterally be continuous. As you can see here, you have light colored bands of felsic minerals and dark colored bands of felsic minerals are alternating. You can see that the light colored bands are quite thicker in comparison towards the lower portion of the sample, and the mafic layers or darker mineral layers are quite thin. But as you progress towards the top of the layer, you can clearly see that the mafic layers are getting thicker. So, there is no such rule. The concentrations of these felsic and mafic layers or the felsic and mafic minerals can vary, and laterally then in this case you can see that this is a continuous layer of white and dark colored minerals, but here it is submerging towards this end, and these concentrations need not be laterally continuous, but gneissic rocks very clearly can be seen from a distance because of these bandings. And there are a lot of localities known for gneissic rocks in all over India. We have the Aravalli area where we have tonalite tronzimite granodiorite gneisses, which is known from that Aravalli craton. We can have also the tonalite tronzimite granodiorite gneisses from the Bundelkhand craton, in where you can see very distinct bands of light colored and dark colored minerals from quite a distance. This can be both this texture or this structure can be both seen in hand specimen scale and at the outcrop scale. Then we have migmatites. This is a composite silicate rock that is heterogeneous on 1 to 10 centimeter scale, typically having a dark gneissic matrix, melanosome and lighter felsic portions leucosome. Migmatites appear to be layered, or the leucosomes may occur as pods or form a network of cross-cutting veins. Migmatites are usually rocks which are believed to have formed by partial melting of a rock. Anatectic melting, which is known, which has resulted in the formation of migmatites. As you can see here, you can see these thrilling bands of light colored felsic minerals and dark colored minerals seen in this boulder. These are characteristics of migmatite, and this is believed to have resulted from the flow of the melt. You can have the leucosomes, these are the leucosomes, then you can have these dark colored portions are the melanosomes. Sometimes we also see the relict of the previous rock from which this has occurred, and those zones are called as paleozones. Then we have the non-foliated metamorphic rocks. It is a comprehensive term for any isotropic rock, that is a rock with no preferred orientation, and we call them as granophyls. Granofelsic texture is a texture characterized by lack of preferred mineral orientation. A hornfels is a type of granophyls that is typically very fine grained, compact and occurs in contact aureoles. Contact aureoles are nothing but when we have a igneous body intruding into a country rock, because of the heat being dissipated from the hot magma body towards the country rock, it will form a metamorphic zone, and the area where metamorphism takes place is called as the contact aureole. In those rocks we tend to find hornfels, which is a fine grained compact rock without any kind of preferred mineral orientation and is categorized as a non-foliated metamorphic rock. Another texture which is associated with non-foliated metamorphic rocks is the granulose texture, which is characteristic of massive metamorphic rocks that exhibit welded interlocking mosaic of crystals. This can be commonly seen in quartzites and marble. A metamorphic rock composed predominantly of calcite or dolomite is called as a marble. The protolith is typically limestone or dolostone, as you can clearly see here. Here you have an example of a marble. In Indian terrain, marble is known from the Rajasthan locality, that is the Aravalli Delhi Full Belt. Then we have the quartzites, a metamorphic rock which is composed predominantly of quartz. The protolith is usually a sandstone. Sandstone is a sedimentary rock. When sandstones get metamorphosed, it becomes a quartzite. You can see here an example of a quartzite hand specimen. Based on mineralogical composition also, metamorphic rocks can be classified. This classification depends on the ability of identifying a critical or index mineral in a rock using microscope or by other laboratory methods like electron probe microanalysis. Then the name of the rock is modified by the name of the index mineral, which is placed in front of the rock group name. Say for instance, I have a cyst which is having porphyroblasts of garnet. I will call that as a garnet cyst because garnet happens to be an index mineral. There are many index minerals in the context of metamorphic petrology. Actually, index minerals are those minerals which indicate specific conditions of metamorphism. For instance, I can have a kyanite as an index mineral, sillimanite as an index mineral, staurolite as an index mineral. If I have a staurolite bearing cyst, I will call that as a staurolite cyst. If I have a kyanite, if I see the presence of kyanite in a cyst, then I will call that as a kyanite cyst. The presence of garnet, if I have a garnet, garnet refers to, presence of garnet itself refers to a specific pressure temperature stability field for my rock which is formed by metamorphism. Likewise, if I have kyanite, it means that I have a higher grade of metamorphism than that of a garnet cyst. So, different minerals will represent different pressure temperature conditions at which those minerals are stable, and the formation of these minerals by different mineral reactions in metamorphism refers to that mineral or the rock being formed at those specific pressure temperature conditions. So, mineralogical classification is a very good tool for understanding the evolution of metamorphic rocks. Here are few of the examples. If I have a staurolite, this dark colored cross mineral is the staurolite, this is a staurolite cyst, and we have some garnet as well in there. These are the brown colored garnet, small porphyroblasts of garnet, and these are staurolite porphyroblasts. Then we have the kyanite cyst. You can here see this blue colored bladed minerals are the kyanites, and as these kyanites are aligned along a direction, it is imparting a foliation to the rock, and that is why it is called as a cyst, and because of the presence of this index mineral we call that as a kyanite cyst. Likewise, here we have the garnet schist. As you can see, these are the porphyroblasts of garnet, these brown colored minerals. This silky sheen which is being given to this rock is because of the presence of micas. As we have the garnet as an index mineral present in this rock, we have named this rock to be garnet schist. So, each of these rocks, torolite schist, kyanite schist, garnet schist, is being produced in a metamorphic process at distinct pressure temperature conditions, and it allows us to estimate the metamorphic pressure temperature conditions which were present or which was there when that metamorphism took place. It allows us to place these rocks in a specific pressure temperature domain. Then we have the classification based on types of metamorphism. Metamorphism can be classified on the basis of types of metamorphism. As we know that metamorphism can be of a local extent or can be of a regional extent. Regional extent means those type of metamorphism which will affect a larger area, whereas local extent of metamorphism means that these will be confined or constricted to a localized area. For example, we have for regional metamorphism, we can have regional metamorphism, that is the orogenic metamorphism. This is the process associated with the mountain building. For a common example which we have is the Himalayas, where we have orogenic metamorphism which is of regional extent. So, we have formed a number of different types of metamorphic rock in the Himalayan zone. We can have ocean floor metamorphism. This is the metamorphism which is taking place at the ocean floors, and there is an overlying burden of the water on top of it. In those conditions also, because the pressure temperature regime is different, it can initiate metamorphism. We can have burial metamorphism. For instance, if I have a rock which has suddenly had a faulting in it, one block has gone beneath, so there will be a different regime for the block which has gone down. So, burial metamorphism also because of the overlying burden in any kind of a regional metamorphic terrain or even in regional orogenic metamorphism, burial metamorphism can take place. It is basically a pressure driven metamorphism. Then we have subduction zones where the denser plate is subducting beneath the lighter, less denser plate, as a result of which there is a change in the pressure temperature. The subducting plate is undergoing a change in the pressure temperature regime, as a result of which a number of metamorphic reactions will take place, and we will form a variety or a grade of metamorphic rocks. We can have medium pressure, medium temperature to high pressure and high temperature even. A lot of dehydration related melting also takes place in subduction zone, which will also catalyze the metamorphic reactions in subduction zones. Then I have collisional metamorphism, which also falls under the regional extent, where two plates are colliding, that also results in burial and regional metamorphism, and rock types will be the schist, gneiss and so on. So, for local metamorphism, we have contact metamorphism. When an igneous body is passing through a country rock, it dissipates heat from its body and changes the rocks at its contact, and that is what is the contact metamorphism, which results in the formation of hornfels, as I have already mentioned. Cataclastic metamorphism, when there is a faulting, there is a friction over there, and as a result of which metamorphism takes place, that is the cataclastic metamorphism. Cataclastic rocks forms in this kind of a terrain. Then we have hydrothermal metamorphism. This is resulting from the heat of the late magmatic fluids. This also results in formation of many mineral deposits are known in hydrothermally metamorphosed terrains, and this also will produce a set of rocks which will be rich in hydrous minerals, and this will be another type of classification of metamorphic rocks. Then we can have impactites, which is resulting from shock of meteorites, that is impact metamorphism. It can also cause some amount of melting as well in those terrains. Then we have lightning and combustion metamorphism, which are also local extent metamorphism, and rocks formed will be different from those of those that are formed in a regional metamorphism. Then we can have a classification of metamorphic rocks based on the grades of metamorphism. We can have high grade metamorphism or low grade metamorphism. Low grade metamorphism takes place usually at temperatures between 200 degrees Celsius to 320 degrees Celsius and at relatively low pressures, whereas the high grade metamorphism takes place at temperatures higher than 320 degrees Celsius and relatively high pressures. As the grade of metamorphism is known to increase, hydrous minerals which are present will lose the water, hence non-hydrous minerals are more common. For example, granulites are high grade metamorphic rocks. A biotite schist is a low grade metamorphic rock. So, this is one way of classifying the metamorphism, which will has a direct connotation for the temperature and the pressure at which metamorphism has taken place. To summarize, we have different types of parent rocks can be there, which may have resulted in different types of textures, or based on which we can name a rock type. Then we can also classify whether they have taken place in a regional extent or at a local extent, and we can also classify what will be the grade, whether it has occurred at a higher temperature and pressure or at a moderate pressure or temperature or at high pressure and temperature, and based on that we can classify rocks. So, here I have listed down a few of those examples. If I have a parent rock as mudstone and it is foliated, then I can call my metamorphic rock to be, or name my metamorphic rock to be, a slate. Slate usually is a product of regional metamorphism at lower grade, that means at low pressure and temperature. The characteristic of a slate is that it breaks into plates, that means it has a slaty cleavage along which it can be broken. So, slaty cleavage is being imparted by the phyllosilicate minerals which are present in the slates. Then we have the mudstones. This is also can be categorized either as a foliated metamorphic rock. I can call it as a phyllite. It can be called as a regional metamorphic rock. It can be also called as a moderate grade metamorphic rock, and usually is identified in the field because of its shine, that is called as this sheen of a phyllite, and it is usually more granulated and the foliations are more well developed than that of a slate. Then I can also have a rock as a schist. My parent rock in that case will be also a mudstone. Texturally I can call it as a foliated metamorphic rock. It is a regional metamorphic rock and is usually formed at moderate to high grade. That means we can have high temperature and moderate pressure. Different schist we can classify based on its mineral content. Based on the index mineral, for instance, if I have a kyanite present in my schist, I will call that as a kyanite schist. Likewise, if I have a staurolite present, I will call that as a staurolite schist. If I have a garnet present, I will call that as a garnet schist. These are different index minerals which denotes different pressure temperature regime at which these schists have developed. Schist usually shows schistosity. It is a mineral parallel alignment which results in development of well developed foliations. Then we can have a mudstone which can get foliated and can form a gneiss, which is also of a regional grade of metamorphism, and it can be a regional metamorphic rock of high grade. Usually these rocks can be identified based on its light and dark colored bandings. These light and dark colors are imparted in these rocks because of the different minerals constituting the lighter band and the darker band. Lighter band has a felsic content and then the darker minerals are the mafic minerals. These dark and light bands can be seen at outcrop scale as well as on a hand specimen scale and also on the thin section scale. Then if I have a granite, that can also this will also result in a foliated metamorphic rock which we can call as a gneiss. It is a regional metamorphic rock of high grade. It can also develop light and dark colored bandings. Quartz sandstones can result in formation of quartzite which can be clubbed as a non-foliated metamorphic rock, and it is formed by contact metamorphism. So, it is a contact metamorphic rock and also it is a low to high grade metamorphic rock, usually identified by the sugary texture of interlocking quartz grains, which are relatively hard but won't fizz with acid. Likewise, we have limestone can be the protolith for the parent rock. Then it is a non-foliated, it has a non-foliated type of metamorphic rock. It can result in marble. It is a contact metamorphic rock of low to high grade. It is also showing interlocking texture of calcite grains, but it fizzes with acid because it contains calcium carbonate. Then we can also have basalt, which is a non-foliated metamorphic rock. The rock name can be a metabasalt, or metamorphite also is used sometimes. It is a contact, it can be formed by contact metamorphism and usually at low grade, and it is usually greenish color due to chloride. So, metabasalts are known to have a green color by which we can identify those, and we can use any of these textures or the type of metamorphism or the grade of metamorphism or the parent rock of the metamorphism to identify and classify various metamorphic rocks which we see in our field sessions. Thank you, listeners.